Good day everyone, I am Lovely Cesarita from Justice Colleges of the Philippines, and for today's video, we're gonna discuss all about regarding matter. The objectives for this video is to define matter, to classify its classification, and to classify these things we have here in front of me. Either they are pure substance or mixture, or whether they are homogeneous or heterogeneous mixture. So we will use them later on. Okay, let's move on with the first part of our discussion, which is defining what is matter. So when we say matter, it is anything that we can see. It is anything that has volume and mass. So anything and everything that we can see, that we can touch, that we can feel, it is matter. So everything that we have in our schools, in our home, that's all, that's what we call matter. So honestly, matter has two classifications. First is classification matter according to its state form, and the second one is classification of matter according to its chemical composition. When we say classification of matter according to its state form, it refers to being a solid, to being a liquid, or being a gas of any substance or of any things. So, how do we define solid, gas, and liquid? So when we say solid, it is anything that has a definite shape. So, for example, is chair. So we all know that it has definite shape. And the most important things that we need to remember about solid substances is that solid substances or solid things is their molecules doesn't flow easily. And otherwise, when we say liquid substances or liquid things, it is anything that flows easily. It doesn't have any definite shape, unlike solid. For example, is water. It is the basic example of liquid which it flows easily. But we need to remember that liquid can have its own shape with the use of container. So, for example, is when we put the water inside the container or inside the glass. So, in that way, the liquid form its own shape. So, let's move on with the last state form of matter, which is gas. So, when we say gas, it is anything that flows easily and it doesn't have any definite shape and any definite volume. The basic example of gas is the air we breathe. It doesn't have any shape because we can just feel it, and it cannot be formed in a definite shape because its molecules can move freely in the environment. So that's what we call gas. The second classification of matter is classification of matter according to its chemical composition. So that's what will be our focus today, our focus in video today. But first, we just need to unlock terms that is related in classification of matter according to its chemical composition. So, under classification of matter according to its chemical composition, there are two categories of matter, which is pure substance and mixture. So when we say pure substance, it is any substances that is made of one kind of atom, while the mixture is any substances that is made of two or more components. So, under the pure substances, we have elements and compound. When we say elements, it is any things or any substances that is made only one atoms. Well, compound, it is a combination of different elements. So, if the things was made of different elements, it is automatically considered as pure substances. Otherwise, in mixture, so as what I said a while ago, mixture is the combination of two or more substances. Under the mixture, we have homogeneous mixture and heterogeneous mixture. How do we difference the homogeneous from heterogeneous mixture? When we say homogeneous mixture, it is a combination of substances, but the components of the combination of those substances cannot be seen in our naked eye, or even though cannot be seen through microscopic instrument. And it is the opposite of heterogeneous mixture. When we say heterogeneous mixture, it is also the combination of two or more substances, but the difference is that the components of those mixture is that they can be seen in our naked eye. For the example is that pizza. When we saw a pizza, we can easily say that the components of those certain pizza is, for example, Hawaiian pizza. So we can say that the components of that pizza is pineapples, ham, cheese. So that's what we call heterogeneous mixture, and it can be separated, or the components of heterogeneous mixture can be separated by mechanical means. So the terms that we must remember in fulfilling these activities. Okay, let's move on to our activity, or the main point of our activity. I have here 10 different motors, and we will classify how many components or how many pieces they had. And we will classify if they are pure substances or mixture, and we will classify or define them whether they are homogeneous or heterogeneous mixture. 10 motors include refined sugar. Okay, let me show you refined sugar here. And then we have charcoal or pulling here, and we have cornstarch and flour. So this one is flour here. And we have here a chalk dust. So as you can see, it is the powder, and while here it is not. And we have here salt. It's iodized salt. Okay? And as you can see, we have here many water because we will use them later on. But we have here vinegar and pepper. We have here baby oil, isopropyl alcohol, the water itself, and water and tongue. Let's first define or classify these first 5 of matter we have here. Okay, let's first classify this refined sugar we have here. Okay, so how many phases we can see here? So it's obviously, it only has one phase, and it is solid, right? Because the molecules doesn't flow easily. And if we define if it's substance or mixture, we consider it as a pure substance. It is not considered as a mixture because the components of this is hydrogen, carbon, and oxygen. So refined sugar has one phase. It is pure substance and it is homogeneous because we only see the sugar itself. Okay, let's move on with the charcoal. Charcoal or coil. So we so the number of phase we can see here or in the charcoal is 1, and the phase we can see is only solid. So the number of phase of charcoal is 1 solid, and it is pure substance, and it is homogeneous because we can't see anything but the charcoal itself. We have here flour and cornstarch. So let's first mix it. Here. Aish. Okay, let's mix it. And then let's put the cornstarch. Let's mix it. Okay, so let's define how many phases we can see here. So we can see the only one phase, and it is solid. And if we define if it's pure substance or mixture, it is mixture because obviously it is a combination of two substances, which is flour and cornstarch. And if we define it, if it is homogeneous or heterogeneous, we define it as homogeneous. Why? Because even though it is a combination of two substances, we cannot see in our naked eye that they are the combination of cornstarch and flour because of their physical appearance, because they are both similar in physical appearance. Yeah, so let's move on with the chalk dust. So I have here the yellow chalk dust. So we will try to put it in the water, and we will define if it is pure substance or mixture, and whether it is homogeneous or heterogeneous, and how many phases it had if they mix with each other. So let's mix it first. Okay, as you can see, we put the chalk dust here, and I will mix it thoroughly. It's like a juice. So, as I finish mixing it thoroughly, let's first define how many phases we can see. So, in a first look, we can see that it only had a one phase, and it is liquid. But if we, like this, we can see the two phases. First is liquid, and then the second is solid because the chalk doesn't thoroughly mix with the molecules of the liquid. So if we define it, if it's homogeneous or heterogeneous, so I will consider it as heterogeneous because we can see in our naked eye that it has a different phases, which is the liquid and solid, the water, and the chalk dust. So if you ask me if it's pure substance or mixture, so it's obviously a mixture because it's a combination of the two substances, which are the water and the chalk dust. Okay, let's move on with the salt. We have here salt. And yes, of course, it only had one phase and it is solid because we can see anything but the salt itself, and it considered as homogeneous because it only has components, and we can see if we can see in our naked eye what the components or elements that it had. And if we define it as a pure substance or mixture, we consider it as a substance. Why? Because it is a combination of elements, sodium and chloride. So anything that is combination of elements or compound, it automatically considered as a pure substance. Alright? Okay guys, let's move on with the other 5 of the mothers we had here in our activity. So in this last 5, we had vinegar and pepper. We have 70% isopropyl alcohol, water, and baby oil, and then tang and water. So, but first, before we classify these 4 matters or 5 matters, let's define first the water itself. So, because it usually use of combining different substances. So, let's first define this. So, if we define the water itself, we can only see a one phase, and it is obviously liquid. And if we define it or classify it, if it is whether pure substance or mixture, it is obviously pure substance because it is a combination of elements, hydrogen and oxygen. Okay, so let's move on. So we have vinegar and pepper. So let's first combine it to each other. Okay, so as you can see, I put the pepper inside the vinegar. So in terms of defining its phases, so we can see 2 phases, which is obviously liquid and solid. The liquid is the vinegar and the solid one is the pepper itself. And if we classify it as a pure substance or mixture, so it's obviously mixture because it is a combination of 2 substances or 2 components. And if we classify it as a homogeneous or heterogeneous, so it's obviously heterogeneous because we can see that the vinegar is not only the components here, and we can see that there are 2 components. Okay, so let's move on with the isopropyl alcohol itself. So if we define the number of its phase, is obviously had 1 phase and it is liquid, and whether it is pure substance or mixture, it is pure substance because it is combination of hydrogen and carbon, which is the compound or element that is under the pure substance categories of matter. Okay, let's move on with the water and the baby oil. So let's combine it to each other. Okay, so as you can see, I will put the baby oil itself to the water. Okay. So this is a little bit tough in defining whether it is a heterogeneous or homogeneous, or whether it is pure substance or mixture. So first discuss how many phases it had. So, as you can see, obviously, we can see a phase of liquid, and the other one is, it is also liquid, but it's a little bit not that too easily to flow. And that is oil. And if we define it as a pure substance or mixture, of course it's a mixture because it is a combination of two substances. So the last one, if you classify it is as a heterogeneous or homogeneous, obviously it's heterogeneous, of course. Why? Because even though the oil here is liquid, but we can easily say that it has different components aside from the water, and it is oil here in the top. So this baby oil is like the other oil, like vegetable oil that we use, that if you put inside the water, it just flow above the water. So it considered as heterogeneous. Okay, for the last one, that's my favorite, okay? We have here water and tang. So let's first put it inside the water. Okay. Okay, so as you can see, I will mix it thoroughly with each other. Okay. Okay, let's first discuss if how many there's here. How many phases that we can see in this substance. So obviously it has, oh no, there is not only one phase that we can see when we mix the juice powder in a water. But let me mix it thoroughly once again. Okay. After a minute, after seconds of mixing it, I see a two phase, not only one phase. The first phase is liquid, obviously because of the water, and above here we can see the juice powder that was not mixed thoroughly in the molecules of water. Okay, let me show you first. If you just look at it thoroughly, you can see that there's a solid above the water, and that is the juice powder that was not mixed with the entire water. Let's first summarize our discussion for today. So let me rediscuss what is matter. So matter is anything that we can see or anything that we have here in our planet that has a volume and mass. And there are two classifications of matter, which are classification of matter according to its state, which are the solid, liquid, and gas. And the other one, classification of matter, is according to its chemical composition, if it's mixture and pure substance. So when we say mixture, it is anything that is combination of different substances, and well, pure substances is anything that is only made by one atom and made by elements or combination of different elements, which we call compound. So when we say mixture, as I said a while ago, it is a combination of two different or two or more substances, and the categories under the mixture is homogeneous and heterogeneous. And if it's a homogeneous, it is a substances that the components cannot easily seen by naked eye, or even though with the use of microscopic instrument. While the heterogeneous mixture is anything that the components can easily seen by our naked eye and can be separated by mechanical means. So that's all for today. Hope you enjoy our video, and please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. That's all for today. Have a good day.